The work for ICSOM and on behalf of musicians across the world can be exhausting. And on many nights I find my writing interrupted by the sunrise. The light of the day often greets me while I am still absorbed with the darkness of the night. On August 11th, I was returning to North Carolina from Dallas, following multiple trips for ICSOM. And having arrived at the airport gate a little early, I just went to the gate and fell soundly asleep, not 10 feet from the door of the jetway. And I slept much longer and more intensely than I thought. Gradually, after time, I became aware of music in my head that inexplicably to me was Old Man River. And I couldn't figure it out, and I kind of came to, and in that place between sleep and wake, I began to realize where I was, and sure enough, the shoe shine guy across the hallway was singing Old Man River that had entered my brain. But that little bit of reverie was interrupted only by the sound of the announcement of Passenger Ridge, door closing in 15 seconds. To which I jumped up immediately and said, I'm right here. Weren't you even going to hold a mirror under my nose or anything? So I rushed down the jetway, but wanting to linger in this moment, I turned back to hear a few more strands of Old Man River, but instead of that, what I saw was a TV monitor, and I read the words that said, Robin Williams dead, apparent suicide. So I boarded the plane, barely awake and confused, and it was a very dark flight because I knew what was going on in the world that day. On that day in the world, there were people trapped on a mountainside in Iraq facing a terrorist onslaught. War had escalated again in the Middle East. Protest of racial injustice had begun in Ferguson, Missouri, which I knew would inevitably lead to more violence. And now Robin Williams was dead. The day reminded me of a song on a Simon & Garfunkel album, the third album, I believe. And the song has the two voices singing Silent Night, the Christmas song, Silent Night, as a news program plays softly in the background, and the words of the reporter slowly rise in the mix as the music of the singers subsides and grows softer. The news that is reported in that song is the actual news of another day in August, just a day some 48 years earlier. And the stories that are reported, in contrast to the beautiful strains of Sleep in Peace, include, from 1966, opposition to the Civil Rights Bill, a report that the National Guard would be called out should Martin Luther King hold a rally just outside of Chicago, escalation of the war in Vietnam, and the House Un-American Activities Committee's investigation of protesters of that war. It also reported the death of comedian Lenny Bruce. There has always been darkness in the world, and there always will be, but there will also always be music. Many in our network of friends are still reeling from the terrible event that occurred in Chautauqua last week. And while there can be no logical explanation for this or these other events, we will still respond with music. As Leonard Bernstein famously said just after the assassination of President Kennedy, this sorrow and rage will not inflame us to seek retribution. Rather, they will inflame our art. This will be our reply to violence, to make music more intensely, more beautifully, more devotedly than ever before. Our music has never been more relevant to a world that slumps with the weight of its burdens. Our friendships with each other have never been closer or more needed. Those of us in this network of friends have a shared legacy, a shared childhood, a shared present, and a shared future. Whether we realize it or not, we have never been more powerful than we are right now. And while it is a dark world, it is also a beautiful world. And we add beauty to this world every time we walk on stage with our colleagues, knowing that our friends across North America and the world are walking on their stage as well at the very same time to spread the very same message of hope. Our conference theme is the art of advocacy. And this coming year, We will pursue that art as vigorously as we pursue the art of music. It will only be through the art of advocacy that we will achieve our expectations of a thriving musical and cultural society across North America and throughout the world. While others talk about what is sustainable, we will talk about what is achievable. When others say what can't be done, musicians will demonstrate what is possible by joining together through our united network of friends to spread our message of hope. Those of you who know me best must realize that there is a certain irony in my standing before you to dispute that it is a dark and tragic world. And yet, that is exactly my purpose here today, and it is also the reason that I have decided to stand for re-election to an unprecedented fifth term as chair of this historic organization. I am eager to take this message across the world even more tirelessly than I have over these past 8 years. Because every time a TV monitor in an airport lounge tells me some bad news, I think of my thousands of friends who on a daily basis achieve astonishing things that represent the very best of humanity. I think of the musicians of the Minnesota Orchestra who stood together against powerful people who sought to break their spirit, and in standing together emerged closer and stronger. I think of the negotiating committee of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra who orchestrated a magnificent public relations campaign and stood together in the face of overwhelming worldwide news coverage as their own managers sought to break their will by denigrating an entire art form. I think of the musicians of the Louisville Orchestra that worked against great odds, standing together to literally save their orchestra. I think of the musicians of Syracuse, who in creating Symphoria are seeking to achieve something their previous board members refused to even attempt. As I have served in this role, I have been moved and inspired by every musician I have ever met. And on overnight flights back to North Carolina, I never travel alone. I am always accompanied by the music from every concert I have heard and every rehearsal I have attended. We will not be isolated. We will not be fearful. We will not be apathetic. This is not a time to feel darkness for the world. This is a time for all of us to bring light to the souls that we know are burdened. It is not too trite to say we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. We must not doubt ourselves or allow negative voices to influence us. We must never validate the words of those that we do not respect. It is crucial that we all allow ourselves to recall the amazement we felt when we were learning music for the first time and when we knew nothing of the negativity that sometimes surrounds our field. We will greet any doubts with a unified message of hope. We will stand in favor of any positive message, and we will continue to care for each other as the united network of friends that we are. It can be fatiguing to always feel that we are working against something or trying to prevent something. In this week together, we will talk about things to work for and positive visions that we can imagine and achieve. In this week and in this coming year, I will, as always, turn to you all for inspiration. We will not be isolated. We will not be fearful. We will not be apathetic. The world will hear our voices as clearly as they have always heard our music, and I look forward to continuing our work together in this cause. I thank you very much.